We Aussies love a good boast, don't we? We tell every tourist, expat, and poor soul stuck in the States that we've got the best healthcare system on the planet. We brag about Medicare like it's some kind of sacred national treasure. But let's get real for a second. When was the last time you walked into a clinic with a crook knee or a heart doing the tango and actually walked out without tapping your debit card? Exactly. That little green plastic card in your wallet used to be a golden ticket. Now, it's more like a half-baked discount voucher for a shop you can't afford to be in. You've done the hard yards. 40 years of paying your taxes, keeping your head down, and playing by the rules. You spent decades dreaming about the big lap, hooking up the caravan, hitting the open road, and finally seeing the sunset over the Kimberley. But then you hit 65, and the dream starts to curdle. Suddenly, just trying to stay on top of your health is draining your super faster than a leaky fuel tank on a corrugated dirt road. Your retirement fund isn't going towards that new fishing boat or a trip to see the grandkids. It's being siphoned off by a system that's supposed to be free. Let's talk about the gap. It sounds like something you'd find at a shopping mall, but for us, it's a bloody financial sinkhole. It isn't just a harmless bit of paperwork. It is the bleeding difference between what the blokes in Canberra think a doctor's time is worth, which is usually a measly $41, and the actual amount the doctor swipes from your account. The government says your health is worth $40-something. The clinic says it's 80 or 90, and you're the one left standing at the counter, staring at the FPOS machine while your bank balance takes another hit. We're told healthcare is a universal right in this country, a fair go for every Aussie. Well, if that's the case, answer me this. Why does a standard 15-minute checkup now cost you a week's worth of groceries at Coles or Woolies? That's $80 gone. That's a couple of decent steaks, the good bread, and a carton of milk for the week, wiped out just for the privilege of sitting in a waiting room for half an hour. So where'd the free bit actually go? It's a vanishing act that'd make Houdini look like an amateur. Remember when you'd flash your Medicare card, get your script, and be on your way? It was simple, it was fair, but these days, finding a clinic that still does bulk billing is harder than finding a cheap beer at an international airport. It's a ghost town out there. Now, let's cut through the corporate waffle and look at why the system is falling apart. It's not because your local GP has suddenly become greedy and wants a gold-plated Mercedes. It's because the blokes in Canberra have had the Medicare rebate on ice for years. Right now, if you spend 15 minutes with a doctor, Medicare hands them about $41. Think about that for a second. If a Sparky comes over to your place to look at a dodgy switchboard, he's going to slug you at least $150 just for pulling into the driveway. That's before he even opens his toolbox. Yet, we expect a medical professional, someone who spent 10 years at uni, learning how to keep you alive, to run a whole clinic, pay for nurses, keep the lights on, and deal with a mountain of paperwork for $41. It's a joke, a bad one. GPs aren't running charities. They've got rent to pay and staff who want a fair wage. When the government refuses to pay a realistic price for your health, the doctors have no choice. They have to pass the bucket to you. So, what does this mean for your bank account? A typical GP visit today isn't free, not by a long shot. You're looking at an out-of-pocket gap fee of anywhere between $40 to $80. Every time you need a quick script for your blood pressure or a check on that weird mole, you're coughing up the price of a decent pub feed and 2 schooners. You're literally eating into your weekly budget just to get a signature on a piece of paper. If you're on the pension, that $40 to $80 isn't just loose change. It's the difference between a full tank of petrol and staying home for the week. Bulk billing isn't just sleeping, mate. It's been driven out the back and put out of its misery, and you're the one left to pay for the funeral. And if you thought that $40 to $80 gap at the GP was a sting, strap yourself in, mate. That was just the warm-up act. The real financial bleeding starts the moment your doctor slides a referral across the desk and sends you off to see a specialist. This is where the system stops being a safety net and starts looking more like a shark net with a massive hole in the middle. Here's how the scam works. Medicare says they'll cover 85% of the official fee for specialists. On paper, that sounds fair enough. You pay a little bit, the government pays the rest. But here is the trap. Specialists aren't bound by that schedule. They can charge whatever they bloody well like, and usually they do. They know you're desperate. You've got a bum hip, a dodgy ticker, or eyes that are going cloudy, and you can't wait 2 years on a public hospital list. So they slug you. Let's look at the cold, hard numbers for a private surgery gap. Recent data shows that the cost of staying healthy depends entirely on which side of a state border you're standing on. If you're up in Queensland, you might get away with being out of pocket $1,100. Steep? Yeah. But wait until you head south. In New South Wales, that average gap jumps to $2,500. And if you're living in the ACT, God help you, you're looking at a brutal $4,500 in out-of-pocket costs for a single procedure. Think about that. $4,500. That isn't just a medical bill. That is the price of a solid, second-hand tinny with a reliable outboard motor for fishing on the weekends. Or, if you're doing it tough, that's a massive chunk of your yearly age pension from Centrelink wiped out in a single afternoon because you needed a new knee. You spend your whole life paying into the system, thinking it'll catch you when you fall, but when you finally do trip up, you find out that free healthcare actually costs the price of a small boat. It's not a fair go, mate. It's a specialist squeeze. Now, you might think you're safe because you pay for private health insurance. For most of us over 50, dropping your cover feels like jumping out of a moving car without a seatbelt. We're terrified of it. We've been told for decades that if we don't have it, we're one heart flick or a dodgy hip away from a 2-year wait in a public hospital corridor. So we keep paying. We watch those premiums climb by over 3 or 4% every single year, way faster than our wages or the pension ever do. You're stumping up 3 or 4 grand a year just for the privilege of being called a private patient. But here is the dirty little secret. You are double dipping, mate, and not in the good way. First, the tax man hits you with the Medicare levy. Then you fork out a fortune to a private fund for top-tier hospital cover. You'd think that for that kind of money, you'd be treated like royalty. You'd think that when it's time for surgery, you could just walk in, get fixed, and walk out. Tell that to your bank account. Medicare pays 75% of the scheduled fee in a hospital. Your fund pays the other 25%. On paper, that's 100% covered. Wrong. Because the surgeon and the anaesthetist don't give a toss about the schedule. They might charge double or triple that amount. And who pays that extra bit? Not Medicare, not your expensive private fund. You do. You're left holding the bag for 2 grand, 3 grand, or even 5 grand in gap fees. And don't even get me started on the anaesthetist. You'll get a separate bill from a bloke you only saw for 30 seconds before you went under, asking for another grand out of nowhere. It is an absolute rort. Imagine you've been paying $500 a month for a high-tech parachute. You pay it religiously for 10 years. Then one day, the plane's engine's cut out. You jump, you reach for the ripcord, and suddenly the pilot taps you on the shoulder. He says, "Righto, mate, that'll be an extra $2,000 cash if you actually want me to pull the string." That is exactly what private health in Australia feels like today. You're paying twice, but when the emergency hits, you still have to find a few grand in the couch cushions just to get the job done. It's starting to feel like a very expensive anchor. So let's face the music, mate. We are heading toward a future where being healthy is turning into a luxury service for the high flyers. If you haven't got a massive pile of cash stashed away, you're in for a rough trot. I've seen blokes who worked 40 years only to end up selling the family home and downsizing to a shoebox just to pay for a heart valve or a new set of hips. Others are raiding their super, money that was to fund a bit of travel, just to skip a 3-year wait in a public hospital. It's a choice no Aussie should have to make, your house or your health. But I'm not just here to cry into my beer. If you're going to survive this system, you've got to play the game smarter. First rule, never, ever just tap your card like a zombie at the specialist desk. Before you even book the appointment, you demand what the lawyers call informed financial consent. But in plain English, that just means, tell me the bloody price before you pick up the scalpel. You ask point blank, do you use a no gap or a known gap scheme with my health fund? If they start giving you the runaround, walk away. There are other specialists in the sea, and some of them actually give a toss about your bank balance. You wouldn't hire a builder without a quote, so why let a surgeon cut you open without knowing if it's going to cost you $2,000 or $10K? And when it comes to your meds, don't let the big brands fleece you. Every time you're at the chemist, ask for the cheapest generic option under the PBS. It's the same bloody chemistry, just without the fancy box and the $10 markup. Every $20 you save at the pharmacy is another $20 in your pocket for the things that actually matter. Here is the knockout punch, the cold truth of living in Australia in 2026. You can grow old in this country, mate. That's the easy part. But you simply cannot afford to get sick if you don't want to end up completely broke. The free Medicare we grew up with is on life support, and the Gap is the one doing the pulling of the plug. But I want to hear from you lot. I know I'm not the only one seeing this wrought in action. What is the biggest, most ridiculous medical gap fee you've ever been hit with? Did a surgeon slug you $5,000 out of nowhere? Did an anaesthetist send you a bill that made your hair stand on end? Drop your stories in the comments below. Let's get this out in the open and show the blokes in Canberra exactly what's happening to the generation that built this joint. Stay safe and keep a tight grip on your wallet. Catch you in the next one.